Recorded live from the heart of the Bakken, it's the Williston Works Podcast.
Welcome to the Williston Works Podcast, brought to you by the City of Williston. Williston Works brings you in-depth discussions with the entrepreneurs, small business owners, and investors who are getting it done in Williston, North Dakota. I'm your host today, Shawn Wenko, Executive Director of the Williston Economic Development Office, and I am pleased to have with us the Fire Chief for the City of Williston, Matt Clark. Matt, great to have you on the show today.
Good morning, Shawn. Thank you.
Well, it's always great with these podcasts because, this goes back, we're in season 5 of the podcast, and a lot of it's speaking to the investors, entrepreneurs that, like I said, are getting things done in Williston, North Dakota. And I always like to reach out because it's not just business development or the business entrepreneurs that these people want to hear from. It's the people that are in charge of aspects of the city as well, because there's certain areas of the city that play such a huge role in the decision of a business to want to come to this area. Public safety is one of them when we're talking police and fire. And so we're going to get into that in depth, quite a bit today. But first, I want to talk a little bit about, Matt, how did you end up in Williston, North Dakota?
So for me, I kind of got started in the fire service in Montana. I went through the University of Montana's fire and rescue program. I'm a Helena guy myself, and grew up there, born and raised, and established kind of my roots in Montana, and I worked as a wildland firefighter. After that, I joined the Air Force, and I traveled around quite a bit for the Air Force. I was stationed in California, Germany, and Texas. But fortunately for myself, I had family that was rooted in and around the Williston area. And in 2015, they started telling me about the transition of our department to a full-time department. And I applied to come here as a captain originally, and then came here in 2015, and then have had my family in and around, and, we've settled in our roots here for us.
We've seen so much growth in the city of Williston and the region, from a development standpoint. I go back to 2012, and you look at the craziness that was going on, and now 10 years later, we were once a population of 12,000 people. We're at 31,000 people. We're having a banner year in development. It's coming at us faster than we know what to do with. So obviously, the economic recovery is good. And again, that puts a big demand on the public safety services that are out there. But let's talk, outside of business from a residential perspective. What has changed since you got here, and from the point you first started here to where you're at now with the fire department?
So our department in 2014 basically it shifted from the Williston Fire Department of old to the Williston Fire Department of now. And it made the transition to a primarily full-time, but a combination department. And when I say that, in 2015, when I came here, there was only 12 of us that were paid full-time at the time. And then we had approximately 30 paid on-call members. From that point till now, speed forward to 2022, we're up to 81 full-time firefighters. We still have 30 paid on-call staff, and we're roughly about 114 folks altogether as far as a department. So our personnel has grown exponentially. And we went from 1 station to 4 stations, our 4th station being at XWA. And that has all been kind of tailored towards the growth of Williston, whether it's economically or the drivers that have kind of impacted our call volume for service in our community and not only in our county. The Williston Fire Department provides service for 1,100 square miles. And from the time I started in 2015 till now, we were at roughly about 6.3 calls for service. So that's anything from a public service to a fire call to an emergency services medical call. And now we're averaging about 14 calls within a 24-hour period. So we've doubled where we're at, and we're continuing to rise. Our calls for service are trending higher than Minot, trending near Bismarck's numbers as far as calls for service. And all of that has been impacted by the community and how it's been growing around us.
Well, and you talk about, you're saying 1,100 square miles is the service area. How much has that grown from the past 15 years?
Exponentially. And that's the Williston Fire Department provides fire protection coverage for the city limits of Williston. And then our ambulance, our hazmat team, and our technical rescue team cover the rest of that 1,100 square miles in support with our mutual aid partners that we have throughout the county.
And obviously the growth in that, I mean, it's going to take, it takes funding.
Correct.
To operate the services that are needed for a community. Let's touch a bit on the public safety tax. What is that?
So the public safety tax was introduced on the ballot in 2014 and was approved. And what that does is it was a 1% sales tax increase for our area for the Williams County. It's split 50-50 between the city and the other 50% with the county itself. And it provides supplemental capital and operational expenses for our department, the Williams County Sheriff's Office, Emergency Management, Williams County Regional Dispatch Center, Williston PD. It's anything to do with emergency services in our county. It provides supplemental funding for those entities.
Well, and jumping into now, from a business development standpoint, and I hear this quite a bit, and I talked about this a bit in the intro, but when I have businesses look at the community, okay, public safety is, we talk about education, healthcare. Public safety is already, it's right up there. And whether it's police or fire, it's important to some of these businesses that are coming here. And I would assume that it's a much different monster that you guys deal with our, main industry being oil and gas here than what you may see in other parts of, like, let's say a city of similar size and scale. A good example, we look at what's going on west of town right now. We announced roughly a $2.8 billion gas to liquids facility. If something happens at this facility, I can't imagine it's as simple as going and putting a little water in, putting a little water on it and the problem's taken care of. And maybe, you can talk a bit about that. I mean, just the wants and needs have got to be different. I mean, it's got to be much, much greater than what you would see in other areas.
So, and it's kind of been the key for us, is to anticipate the growth. And, when our department made the transition in 2014, those initial years and the initial introduction of the public safety sales tax was kind of a catch up. It was our call volume and everything was already ahead of where it should have been based on where we were at. But now when it comes to all these agencies that are coming in, they expect a level of service from us. They expect a level of training from us. And some of the public safety funding and where we've been at as a department has helped us improve our ISO rating. And so what that is it's an insurance services office rating. And that, because of some of the supplemental funding that we've received, we've been able to go from a 6 to a 2 as far as our ISO rating for us as a department. And that's something that we're reviewed on a 3-year cycle for that. So we're actually up for review again in October. But then when you start talking about the billions of dollars worth of industry that are coming west of town, even though those are outside of the city of Williston, we still respond to those as far as our hazmat response. We still respond to those industries as advanced life support response for those. And I'm continually in talks with those companies as they come in, because we get put into the mix as far as their emergency response plans and what services can we provide to them to mitigate where they're at. Because safety, fortunately, is one of their highest priorities with these agencies when they come in. So not only do they want us to be able to provide the highest level of service that we can, but they also want us to be informed on what's going on, what chemicals are being brought through their facilities, because we have to be prepared and ensure that we have the right equipment to mitigate whatever operations that they do have.
Right. And, and that's a good point you touched on, because there's got to be, each chemical you're dealing with, or, everything's got to be unique, I'm assuming. And it's got to require either, this piece of equipment for this or something for that. And I would hate to have something, break out and you wouldn't have the equipment to handle that.
Right. And, and that's some of the touches of, the public safety and some of the improvements that we've made is we built a regional training facility here that's for our fire and emergency services response. We're looking at potentially building a hazardous materials training facility for us, all with the anticipation of these needs that are coming in, because at the end of the day, we have to continually train on what's coming in. And as these processes grow, as these businesses grow, when the data mining warehouse that was approved to be west of town, that's a whole nother animal that we have to be prepared for. And it's not something that, they don't teach you that in the basic firefighting school. So you have to continually adapt our training needs as a department.
So you talk about this regional training center, and I mean, it has the ability to attract people from outside the region and
correct
and train and provide a good service and maybe even capture some of these people that would be a future employee.
And that was something that we strived really hard to work towards and to become that regional hub. When I first started as a department, we were investing a lot of funding to send our folks outside to go to all these other departments to try to catch up. Now we're the hub, and local departments from around, even outside of Williams County, we cover the northwest region of North Dakota. They're coming to us. We have Fargo firefighters coming to us, Minot firefighters coming to us, taking hazardous materials classes at our facility in cooperation with emergency management for the county. So it's something that, our name and what public safety sales dollars have done for us is exponential, and we can't thank it enough.
Well, if you were to put this on a scale too, from the amount of growth that you've seen in the department put against a timeline of that growth, how would you rate that to other cities? I guess where I'm going with this is that we look at what has happened in Williston over the last, let's say 15 years.
Yeah.
And I say this all the time, but you go back, Williston was a town of 12,000 people. The growth was stagnant. And I mean, there was real concern about the professional services, who was going to come back and be the baby boomers were starting to retire, who was going to come back, who was going to be the doctor, who was going to be the lawyer. We don't have that problem anymore. Our average age is 30, 31 years old. We've got young professionals coming to the area, every day, and we have an abundance of jobs here. But you guys had to ramp up so quickly, and I just look at it from a city. We built an airport in record time. We put billions of dollars of infrastructure that had to be expedited. That had to have been the same for you guys with the fire department. And again, I think the general public would look at this and say, well, this has grown so much. Well, it had to, because you were playing catch up this whole time.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, in 7 years from 2015 till 2022, we did about 30 years worth of growth as a fire department. As you start talking about additional stations and response modeling, data-driven response for departments, we were forced to try to mitigate those needs because, like I said, we were playing catch up. Our call volume was already growing exponentially, and our call volume is continuing to grow. We're trending to be 1,200 calls ahead of where we were in 2021 already in 2022, and it's not slowing down for us.
I like to always go back, when we were going crazy. 2012 is always the year I remember for myself. But Williston, it always tends to get a bad rap in the image of public safety. And you look at, again, we spent all this time playing catch up, trying to get ahead of the game. What would you say to that today?
You look at the national standard and kind of where we're at call volume wise compared to other departments and, the rest of the United States. And typically it's about an 83% EMS or emergency medical services call. And then the 17% is about fire or rescue calls that we have. And we're about that. We match that pretty much with across the board with everything that we do. We have from year to year. And when you start looking at our response times and where we're at and the improvements that we were making, our crews, on average, we're sitting about 7 to 8 minutes response times out the door back in 2014, 2015. Now we've improved those numbers to about 6 minutes on average from the time that we roll out, no matter where you are in town, to get where you're at. And we still have room for improvement, and we still have room to grow and continue to provide a safe neighborhood for everybody. But at the end of the day, as far as the department standards go, we have other departments within the state that are reaching out to us for training, that are reaching out to us for experience, and reaching out to the services that we provide, because we've gone from that humble small town fire department to the department that's setting the standard across the state. And, when it comes to service leading training regarding hazmat or other things like that, we're working with our community partners to ensure that not only are we providing the best service that we can here, but also we're setting the standard and helping the rest of the state of North Dakota and eastern Montana as well.
I want to touch a bit on the ISO rating again. Obviously you want to keep the rating down because that benefits the residents of the community and the region. Maybe explain a little bit more in depth on that.
So ISO is built on, it's basically a checklist as far as the fire department goes. It reviews different aspects of not only the fire department, but then also our dispatch, our public works, and kind of how we all work and train together. It reviews our training needs. It reviews our hydrant system within the community. It reviews our dispatch center and how fast are they getting us out. And each one of those criteria that we meet, we can get a certain amount of points in that. And based on the points or the capabilities that we provide to the community will dictate what points we get. And then based on our scale, we were fortunate enough to get an ISO 2 rating, but we are only an ISO 2 rating by about 1 point. So there's still room for improvement. And then the highest rating you can get is an ISO 1. And that's where we would like to see our department continue to grow and move towards. And like I said, it's a 3-year process. So every 3 years, this is a new cycle. Every 3 years, they come here and evaluate our department and ensure that we're meeting our response standards to the community. So the National Fire Protection Association dictates how fast we have to be out the door, how fast we have to be at your house if you have an emergency. And so they come here and they evaluate, are we meeting those needs? Do we have proper staffing on our fire apparatus? Do we have the right equipment on our fire apparatus? And kind of touching on the equipment in our fire apparatus, most of that stuff has about a 10-year shelf life. So it has to be replaced to make sure that it hasn't been degraded beyond repair and it's not something that could injure firefighters, injure personnel. And so even though we built a lot of this infrastructure as far as a fire department goes, it's kind of a revolving door, making sure that we stay up to the right standards and are providing that ISO 2 and now hopefully that ISO 1 standard to our community.
Well, and you know, when you talk about the ISO rating, I mean, it's a direct benefit to the community itself, because it's a benefit in the pocketbook, I would assume, to the community.
Correct.
Your insurance rates go down and you know, yeah, it's important. I hear this, you know, rating number all the time, and obviously it's of great importance to you guys. But, you know, I think again to the public, I mean, this is something that really benefits the public by having this lower rating. You know, and the same is too getting into when we talk equipment, apparatus, which say, you know, just like anything, there's a shelf life. You guys are in a whole different. This is a whole different level of a monster, because you probably don't want to be working on equipment in the middle of a fire. So it's you know, it's one of those things where, you know, keeping things upgraded and top quality, that's essential.
And we've been working with our finance department as far as the city and the county, trying to develop, you know, capital improvement plans and different operational plans to help supplement some of the public safety sales tax dollars that we've been receiving, and to continue that growth, to make sure that, you know, are we providing the best service? Yes. And are we providing it fiscally responsible to our community as well?
When you look at like the fire department like yourselves, it's able for us to be more competitive with some of the other cities that are putting in for these projects as well. It's just another, you know, I say economic development, it's just another tool in our toolbox that we can put out there and say, listen, we've got a fire department that's up to speed. They're staying ahead of the game, and it's very attractive for development in this community.
And for us too, you know, it's not just setting that standard. We're always trying to find, okay, what's the next step for us? What's the next continuous improvement for us? So we're also, as a department, looking at department accreditation. That is an external review of our department. We built a strategic plan in 2021, and we worked through that 5-year. It's a 5-year strategic plan for us. So where's our department going? What can we do, and what are the community's needs? So we brought in a lot of external and internal stakeholders to kind of work through those changes and see, you know, where are we going? And then the external review, as far as the accreditation team, they're going to come in here and they're going to kind of fillet us open, and they're going to hold us to a standard and say, these are the best practices that are seen within the fire service. You're meeting X, Y, and Z, but A, B, and C you need work on. And what that does is it, you know, it's an open book to us, and it allows us to improve and make sure. And it's another thing too, is if we're able to attain that the accreditation status, it's something that when your organizations are coming in looking at us, not only is this fire department an ISO 1, but they're also an accredited fire department. It speaks volumes to what the level of service that we provide. Makes
it hugely attractive for companies, you know, to want to come to the area when you're talking about. They're looking at that. I'm telling you right now, the big companies, they're looking at things like that, and we need to stay ahead of the game to stay competitive when we're talking business development. You talk about your strategic plan. Is that posted somewhere? Can the public see it?
So everything for us is on wfdems.com. It's attached to the City of Williston's website, and you can go on there. You can see everything about our stations, where our station locations are, our command structure, who's involved, how many folks we have. And then we have a detailed outline of our strategic plan, our annual training plans, what we're doing every year as far as training. We also have community involvement procedures on there, and how we're getting out and getting involved, and, you know, helping our community from whether it's public outreach events to CPR classes and other things.
But this has just been so interesting, Chief, because you just talk about it. It's not just fighting fire. It's the data and the science and the preparation behind it and the training behind it. I mean, there's just so much more, I think, than what a person may see on a day-to-day basis with the fire department and the needs and what needs to be done to stay ahead of the game. I think you guys have done a great job.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So one final question for you, though, Matt. We're looking at Williston. We're going to look 5 years into the future. What do you see is going on?
For us, we're a continuing growing hub. The name of the game here is oil and gas, but when you talk about our unmanned drone projects and some of the other things, our agriculture that's in our community, everything around us is growing. Everything is being built up. Our infrastructure is being built up, and our department is going to continue to evolve and grow. We're evaluating the response data that we have going west of town and what service gaps that we have. And we're looking at potential additional stations and other needs that we're going to have, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to wait for the emergencies to happen in our department to try to catch up. We want to anticipate and try to be prepared for the community as it grows.
Well, and that's a good comment, because I will tell you, there's probably a potential roughly maybe $8 billion in value-added activity development that's going to happen west of town. Okay, it's going to take some time to happen, but in the realm of development, it's going to happen fairly quickly. And I think it's important that we're up and we're ramped up. We spent so much time trying to catch up. It's nice that we try to be on offense a little bit than defense with everything that we do as a city, and the fire department being one of the top important ones of what we're talking about.
Yes, sir.
So, Matt, I want to thank you for being on the show today.
I appreciate your time, Shawn.
And just like anything you look at, and we're having, again, a record year with economic development. The city's continuing to grow. The demand for services isn't going to go down, whether we're talking the fire department or we're talking coffee at the local coffee shop. It's not going to go down. And the people that are in charge of these different areas have got it. They have to continue to stay ahead of the game. I think you guys are doing a great job, and good luck to you guys as we get into the future.
Thanks, Shawn. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Williston Works Podcast. It's brought to you by the City of Williston. Please like and subscribe for interviews and content to learn more about Williston, North Dakota. You can visit cityofwilliston.com. I'm Shawn Wenko, Executive Director of the Economic Development Office. We will see you next time on the Williston Works Podcast.